Perfect. All right. So we are going to be going over the Wealthy Trustee program and the right way to build wealth. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Thank you for joining me tonight. Let's see here. And let me know if you guys have any questions in between the presentation. All right, so this is a disclaimer. So this is not legal advice or tax advice. So I am not a licensed attorney or a certified public accountant. Okay, guys? All right, so I am your instructor. My name is Christina Ivette. I am a passive income strategist. So I have been doing trust since 2015. That's when I started my real estate investment business and I started flipping houses. And I had a mentor at that time. And I knew that, you know, based off of what my mentor taught me, that I had to utilize a trust. So I started off my first property. I purchased my first property with a trust. And the reason why I did that was because, you know, flipping houses is a very high liability business. Anything can happen, especially when you are, you know, dealing with construction. So I didn't want an independent contractor to be able to sue me because they got injured on the job. So I knew that I had to protect that asset. I had to protect myself, my business, my growing wealth. And that's why I utilized a trust, right? But before I even started in real estate, I was a registered nurse. So that was my career. And then I decided to go into real estate and, you know, work for myself. So I have helped hundreds of people create passive income, invest in real estate, and protect their asset using trust. So one thing that I want to do is I want to show you guys my structure. So I'm going to pull up the Secretary of State for my state. So I reside in the state of Florida. So this is sunbiz.org. And this is my real estate investment company. So it's called Elite Homes Enterprise LLC. And so I'm going to go down to the bottom. You see, I'm the registered agent. I should not even be the registered agent, to be honest with you guys. But the authorized member or the owner of Elite Homes Enterprise is Urban Holdings Incorporated. Okay, so that is the name of the owner of that entity. So now if you go to Urban Holdings, so we're going to go search up Urban Holdings to see what comes up, right? So if you go to Urban Holdings, this is Urban Holdings, and we're going to go down to see who owns Urban Holdings. So if we go down to officers, because it's an S corporation, it says the CEO is Ways to Wealth. So we know Ways to Wealth is obviously not a human being. So that is obviously an entity and it's a trust entity. So the way that I'm structured is I have an unincorporated business trust that owns my S corporation, and my S corporation is my holding company that owns my LLC. Okay. So I just wanted to show you guys that. Let's get back to the presentation. Okay, so the objective for tonight is for us to understand what is a trust, who are the contributors for the trust, how do you operate a trust, what are some tax strategies, some wealth strategies, and how do you protect your assets, okay? So the number one question that you need to be asking yourself is, how do these big companies pay no taxes? We know Jeff Bezos with Amazon, we know Berkshire Hathaway, and we know Trump, right? So how is it that they get away with either paying no taxes or paying little taxes, like less than their secretary, right? They brag about this stuff all the time, and it's because they use this structure, right? They use these type of entities like trust in order to be able to save on their taxes, you know, and mitigate their risk. So I wanted to show you guys the Trump organization, right? So you have the Trump organization, and as you can see here, it's private. So they're not going to tell you who the owners are, but we know who the owners of the Trump organization are because they're all over the media. But here it's private, so they're not going to list them, okay? And then if we scroll down a little bit further, here it'll tell you that the company serves as a principal holding company for the Trump Business Ventures and Investments. Okay, so that's their holding structure that they use in order to, pretty much own all of their businesses and all of their investment properties. So we need to be doing the same thing. So now we have the US dollar. And do you see the word trust? So you have the US dollar, and all of us, we have money, right? We have it in our pockets. We know, we utilize this every single day, and we do not even know that we're utilizing these Federal Reserve notes, and the United States is also operating with the trust. So you see the word trust, it says, "In God we trust," right? So what you need to understand, and a lot of people are not aware of this, is that the United States, they use a trust entity as well. And that's why it's listed on the US dollar. So "In God we trust" is a trust entity. So like by law, you're not supposed to be utilizing the word trust if you're not talking about a trust entity. Okay, so we're not talking about like, "Hey, I trust you with my book bag." We're talking about the entity itself. Okay, so that's why the word is here, because they utilize that entity in their corporation. So the United States is a corporation, and they utilize trust. So if the US is using trust in their structure, you should also be using trust. They also use insurances as well. So like when we are born and they issue us a birth certificate, they actually put an insurance policy on us using that birth certificate. So and they actually issue a trust for us as well. It's called a Sister Q trust. So when we are born, they issue us a social security card and a birth certificate, and those two instruments are used in order to create a trust and an insurance policy for us. You have to be aware of what is happening. So your parents are actually signing on the dotted line in order for all of these things to be implemented on your behalf. And that's how you're able to get all these benefits that the United States has for you. So economic crisis, you guys, we are heading into an economic crisis, and digital currency is equivalent to increased control, right? So they want to put us in a position to where, where they can control our economy. Basically, they can control our funds, our money. They want us to be dependent on the government. So if we have like land and we are operating privately, and we have our trust that owns our land, we're putting ourselves in a position of independence, which the government is not going to, they're not going to favor that, because their agenda is to move us away from that, right? To move us away from being, the Lord of our lands, and to move us away from, from having total, independence from them. So because of this economic crisis and them having the intentions on doing away with the dollar, then you have to, prepare, right? So you have to prepare yourself, and the best thing is for you to hold tangible assets like real estate and precious metals, and for you to actually have your land be in a trust, because that falls under common law, it falls under contract law, it falls under trust law, and they won't be able to come after you and seize your properties. So you need to stay protected during these times. So what exactly is a trust entity? So a trust is a contract, guys. It's a contract between several different contributors or individuals, right? So the creator of the trust is the grantor. Then you have the trustee, which is the individual who operates the trust. And then you have the beneficiary, which is the person who is going to benefit from the trust. So at that point in time, that is what constitutes, this contract, right? So this is a trust indenture, and another word for indenture is agreement. So like I said, it's a contract. Everything in the United States runs under contracts. So right now I'm in my home, there's lights on, right? So I have a contract with the utility company in order for me to have electricity in this house. It doesn't seem like I have a contract with them, but I do, right? I had a contract in order to purchase this house, right? I have a contract with like another utility company to have running water in my house. So everything that you do is contracts. Even you going to the grocery store is a contract, right? So that is actually the highest form of law, is contract law. That's what we had before we had anything else. So when it comes to trust, that's the safest way in order for you to really protect yourself as an individual by governing yourself under contract law, right? So with this type of instrument, like I said, it's an agreement, and this type of instrument has a declaration and it has bylaws. Okay, and so you can use this either in your business, or you can use it to govern your private family life. And like I said, there is a creator that creates it, and then there is a person who controls it for the benefit of someone else, right? So let's get into these appointed parties. So the grantor, like I said, is the creator, okay? Another name for grantor is trustor or settler. Those are, all of those names are interchangeable when it comes to the trust, okay? And like I said, this is the creator. So they're the actual person who's executing the trust. They're the person who is actually going to notarize the trust. And then you have the trustee, which is the controller of the trust. So they're the ones who are operating the trust on a day-to-day basis. So everything that needs to happen within the trust, like if you're buying property or if you're selling it, if you are, applying for a loan, if you need to sign for a bank account, anything that deals with operating the trust, if you have to pay bills, the trustee is the one who's doing that. So when it comes to you creating your trust, you want to be in that position. You want to be the trustee. Then you have the beneficiaries. Those are the inheritors. So those are the individuals that are actually going to be inheriting all the assets that are owned by the trust. So once the trust is dissolved, or once it expires, so usually it has a duration, let's just say it's 25 years. Once that 25 years is up, then those assets go to the beneficiary, okay? So the beneficiary is the person who's going to receive everything. So what are the appointed duties of these parties? You have the grantor. So their duty pretty much is to appoint the trustee, right? So they are the ones who create the trust, and they have to actually appoint someone to do all of the fiduciary responsibilities of, carrying out the day-to-day roles and responsibilities of the trust. So on paper, the grantor actually appoints the trustee, and then they transfer assets into the trust, and then they pretty much walk away from the trust. So if you are dealing with like an irrevocable trust, then this individual, they don't have any type of power. They can't take back any of their assets that they put into the trust, and they walk away from the trust for the trust to be managed by the trustee. So the trustee, what their roles and responsibilities are pretty much is to appoint a successor. So you're going to appoint someone that's going to take over after you in the event that you become incapacitated or you expire, right? So you need to make sure that someone is able to take over, because the trust needs to continue to operate, and they also need to accept that position as well, right? They need to be qualified for it. And then the trustee also manages the trust assets. So if the trust owns 10 properties, the trustee is the one who is either managing those 10 properties or managing the property manager of those 10 properties. And then they are investing the trust funds, right? Because the number one thing with the trust, when it comes to the trustee's fiduciary responsibility, is to grow the funds of the trust, right? You don't want to have a trust and then the trustee is not dealing legally and lawfully, and the funds are just, gone, they're spent, right? They disappear. So they have to invest the funds and grow the funds for the beneficiaries. So now you have the beneficiaries, right? And so their main role, they don't have any type of control over the trust, but what they have to do is they have to clearly understand, the trust, right? So you want to give them a copy so that they can read it and understand, what are the contents in the trust. And then you also want to let them know what the trustee duties are, right? So that they know, because the trustee is their representative. The trustee is the one who is doing all of these day-to-day actions for them. So they need to understand what their powers are, what they can and cannot do. And then you have a protector. So the protector is optional, and you definitely want to put a protector in place if you are not the trustee and you decided to like hire a lawyer to be your representative or an accountant or someone like that. Then you want a protector to watch over the trustee to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing for the benefit of the beneficiary. And if they see that the trustee is not dealing legally or lawfully, then the protector is able to pretty much remove the trustee out of power or force them to resign. So there's different types of trust. You have irrevocable trust, you have revocable trust, land trust, charitable trust, living trust, testamentary trust, right? There's hundreds, like I'm telling you, hundreds of trusts. So you have to choose the best trust for you. The trust that pretty much will give you the most protection out of every trust is an irrevocable trust. That is the best type of trust to have. And it is only irrevocable for the grantor, meaning that the grantor, they are the ones who created the trust. And if they put anything into the trust, they are not able to take it back. So they're not able to, quote unquote, revoke their gifts or revoke the trust, meaning that they cannot dissolve the trust, right? And so that's only for the grantor, and that's why you do not want to be in that position. You don't want to be in the grantor position because, like I said, they're powerless. So you want to be the trustee. So now as the trustee, if you are putting your assets into the trust, that's totally okay, because you have full control. And so you can sell, you can move the assets around, you can change ownerships, 10 times over, whatever it is that you need to do in that situation. So with a revocable trust, it's pretty much the opposite of an irrevocable. So with a revocable trust, you can take back any of your properties and you can dissolve it, and you can make any changes to the indenture. So with that type of trust, once the grantor dies, then that trust automatically becomes irrevocable. So how do you create a trust? So one, you want to determine what type of trust you want to create. Like I said, there's hundreds of different types of trust. So once you have determined the type of trust that you want to create, whether it be a business trust or a family trust, then you are going to determine or figure out what the trust name is, right? You have to name the trust. And when it comes to naming the trust, you do not have to have the word trust in the name of the trust. A lot of people think that you have that entity has to end with the name trust or have it somewhere in between, but no, that is not the case. So when it comes to naming the trust, you can name it anything that you want. Sometimes people, they want to utilize, especially if you are dealing with a business trust, sometimes you want to utilize like the word corporation or the abbreviations LLC. You can do that. And then you want to appoint a grantor, right? So you are appointing yourself as the trustee. And what you want to do is you want to appoint a grantor, someone who is actually going to be the owner on paper for you. And this person has to have access to you. When it comes to you being the grantor, you do not want to be in that position. So you want to appoint someone to be the actual creator on paper. So this is going to be someone that you have access to. This is going to be someone that you trust, that can actually notarize the trust, right? Because the trust needs to be notarized, and sometimes in some situations you want them to either be, in the same state or vicinity as you. So you can appoint like a parent, a grandparent, you could appoint a sibling, anyone, anyone that you have access to. You can also even appoint like a fiduciary, like if you had like a lawyer, or if you had your accountant, someone like that, you could also use as your grantor. So you're going to be the trustee, and then you want to figure out who your beneficiaries are. If there are, your children, if they are any one of your loved ones, and then you want to choose a successor, someone to take over after you. So for example, if you decide to have your children as the beneficiary, or one of your children, then what you can do is you can also appoint them to be the successor, so that if you become incapacitated or expire, then that beneficiary can take over and operate the trust, right? Because that's one of the most important things. This trust, like for example, a family trust can operate for 100 years. So you have to keep that into consideration and know that the legacy needs to continue, and so you need to have someone ready to go to be able to take over. So number 3 is create the trust agreement, right? So we're going to be creating the trust agreement. You're going to figure out what the duration, how long you want to operate the trust for, and the establishment date and things of that nature. So once you have put everyone into position and you have appointed everyone and you have created the trust agreement, then you're going to get it notarized, right? And so the trust needs to be notarized by the grantor and the trustee. And once it's notarized, then it is legal, right? It is legalized. And at that point in time, then you can, start to operate the trust. And that means that you can go ahead and open up a bank account. You can go ahead and actually start, start issuing like trust funds. And so the way that you're going to do that is you have to start your trust bank account with some type of funds. So you are going to actually issue a loan from your personal name to the trust. And so it can be anything. It can be $100, $1,000, whatever you choose. And so the trust is now going to actually put or create a promissory note from the trust to you for that $100 that you started.
Are you sitting down?
With, oh, excuse me, I have to mute somebody. So anyway, so the trust is going to actually, create a promissory note, and then that money or that loan is actually going to be paid back to you in your personal name with interest. So you also want to, keep that into consideration, knowing that whatever funds that you personally put into the trust, that you're going to get that money back, right? Because as the trustee, you are able to issue loans, but then you are able to also get loans from the trust as well. So after you have legalized it, after you have already established a bank account, now one of the most important things is for you to transfer your assets into the trust. And those assets could be, pretty much anything, right? They could be tangible assets, or they could be intangible assets. So let's say like real estate, right? It could be land, it could be a house, it could be royalties, it could be precious metals, it could be a vehicle, it could be a brokerage account where you have stocks and bonds and CD accounts. It could also be insurance policies, right? Those are actually considered assets, and a trust can own it and be the beneficiary of that type of asset. So after you have transferred your assets, then at that point, you just continue to operate the trust. But those are the most important things, right? You creating the trust, getting it notarized, actually opening up a trust bank account so that you can fully operate legally and lawfully, because you don't want to be in a position to where you're commingling funds, right? You don't want to be paying the trust bills out of your personal bank account. So you need to make sure that you have a separate bank account for the trust, and the best practice is to have this bank account be in a separate bank than the bank that you bank with personally. So if you are banking with Wells Fargo personally, then you want to choose, Chase Bank or TD in order to open up your trust bank account, okay? So that you can, one, avoid commingling funds, but then two, you could also avoid for the bank to merge your profiles, because sometimes they will merge your personal profile with you being the trustee of the trust. They'll merge them together, which is not what you want, okay? So after you are in the position to where you have a trust and you're operating it, the number one reason why you want this type of entity is for asset protection, right? So it puts you in a position to where you are pretty much operating 100% private. And that's what you want, especially now during these times where we are, heading into an economic crisis. So what can a trust protect you from? So a trust can protect you from bankruptcies, from heavy taxation, from divorce, probate, lawsuits, foreclosures. So it's highly beneficial for you to have this type of entity. So let's talk about heavy taxation, for example, right? With heavy taxation, for example, you as an individual, you are, you're taxed with federal tax, state tax, you have sales tax, you have all these different taxes. But then they also tax you, when you die, right? So they have a death tax, they have an estate tax, they have an inheritance tax. So with you using this type of entity, you actually avoid all this heavy taxation. So if all of your assets and your entire estate is in a trust, then you're not going to be taxed an estate tax, an inheritance tax, or a death tax, because everything is owned by the entity and not by you as an individual. So that's definitely a plus. Another reason is for like your regular federal taxes. So for example, I always use Steph Curry because, Steph Curry, he is, he's a good athlete, and he's one of the highest paid. He made $250 million in his contract, and you won't even believe how much money he paid in taxes. He paid basically 50%. So he paid 140, I think it was $142 million in taxes from his $250 million contract. So if Steph Curry had a trust in his structure, then he would be able to, heavily reduce those taxes. And that is actually putting him in a position to where he's saving for his family, right? Because if that 142 million is not going to the IRS, then it's going to stay within, within his household. It's going to allow him to be able to, invest those funds into other things and to leave more money for his children. So that's one of the importance. Now let's talk about divorce, right? So as a trustee, you have to understand that the trust is not you. The trust is its own entity. So everything that the trust acquires during your marriage is not subject to your divorce. Meaning, if you've been married for 10 years and you've been operating your trust for 2 years and you acquired, let's just say 15 properties with that trust, those 15 properties that are owned by the trust cannot be in your divorce proceedings, which means that you are protected. Which means that probably, at that point in time, only your primary residence is going to be subject to this divorce. So that is something to keep in mind, because when it comes to divorce, that is a transfer of wealth, right? One person is going to, you guys are either going to end up 50-50, or one person is going to end up with majority of the marital assets. So that's how it can actually protect you, protect you from divorce. Now let's talk about probate. Probate is Probate is when you decide to get a will, or when you don't have your affairs in order and you don't have a will and you die and you leave assets. And then now at that point in time, these assets need to be transferred to your children or your heirs or your next of kin. So with that being said, hold on for me 1 second. Gotta mute somebody. So with that being said, a trust entity is the only way for you to avoid probate. The only way. So meaning if you have a house today and that house is owned by you personally, meaning that your first and last name is on that property, how do you expect that house to be transferred to your kid's name? The only way that that will happen is through a court order. So even if you have a will and you say, I want my son to have my house and I want my daughter to have my car, there still has to be a judge involved. So that is actually doing a disservice for your children, because they're grieving from your loss, but now they have to go to court. Now they have to get lawyers involved. And now at that point in time, because you decided that you were going to keep your assets in your personal name, is subject to estate tax. So the court is going to issue you an estate. And then at that point in time, the court is going to take their cut. The lawyers are going to take their cut. And if you had any debt, like student loans or any other types of liens or anything, credit card debt, anything like that, they're going to take their cut. And then whatever is left over is for your children. So in some instances, the children, because there's so much debt involved and because there's so many fees with the courts system, they actually have to sell the assets. So they're not able to keep, mom and dad's house because mom and dad had $20,000 in credit card debt, and they're not going to come out the pocket for the $20,000. So they have to sell the house. So you can decide, you have to pretty much decide if you want your children to go through that. If you want to avoid that whole entire process, the best transfer of wealth is by transferring it using a trust, because there's pretty much no transfer, right? So the way that you avoid the probate is by putting your assets into a trust, putting your children as the beneficiary, and then at that point in time, there's no transfer, because your children are the inheritors. They're the ones who pretty much own the trust. They're the ones who own the assets. So that's how you are able to avoid probate. Okay. And then the same thing with, lawsuits and foreclosures, right? When you are going through litigation, a trust is actually going to protect you, and it depends on the type of trust you have. So for the type of trust that I have and I help people set up is a non-statutory trust, right? So that means that it doesn't fall within the jurisdiction of your state, and the lawyers in your state, their jurisdiction is only in your state. So that means that they cannot even begin to commence any type of lawsuit against your trust, because they don't have the jurisdiction to do so. And the same things with the court system. They don't have the jurisdiction to even oversee your court cases. So then if you do get to the point where you are getting sued, at that point you have to go to Washington. You have to go to the Supreme Court in order to be able to carry out that lawsuit, right? Or for them to carry out that lawsuit. So that protects you. Another thing is that if you are the trustee of the trust, you have no liability whatsoever, meaning that if the trust is getting sued, the trust is getting sued. So everything in that lawsuit is going to, be subject to whatever the trust owns. So if you own 2 houses in your personal name, because the trust is in a lawsuit, they can't come after the 2 houses that are in your personal name. And then it works vice versa too. So if you are being sued personally, just because you are the trustee of a trust, they can't come after the assets that are in the trust. So even though they know that you're the trustee, of, of the trust that owns, these 5 or 6 houses. They cannot come after you, and they cannot even include that trust into the lawsuit of you being sued personally. So that definitely protects you. It protects you and your growing wealth. Let's talk about the wealth building formula, right? So we're all at the point in time where we are so focused on building generational wealth, right? That's what we want. We want to build generational wealth so that we can leave it for our kids' kids, and we can leave a legacy behind. And so the way you're going to do that is, one, by being structured, right? You have to be structured the right way. So when I talk about structure, it's I'm talking about what we see here on the screen. Having a business trust, having a private family trust, and then having a tax-exempt nonprofit trust. So if you are conducting business, and let's just say you have an LLC or you have an S corporation, then you are already on the public records, and you want to take yourself off of the public records as fast as possible, one, and in any type of situation that you can, right? So if you're able to do it in this situation, then that is the thing that's going to benefit you the most. So with your LLC, you are the owner on paper. And that's not what you want, because if your business, your LLC, if it's going to be sued, then they're going to come after you as the owner, right? So first they're going to sue the LLC, and LLC is it stands for limited liability. And so that means that you have limited liability, like it says, right? So when it comes to your LLC, if it's going to be sued, the judge can actually choose to pierce that corporate veil and go after you personally, because you are the owner of the LLC, and you really don't want that. And so what's going to protect you, and what's going to be your first layer of protection, is instead of having you being the owner of the LLC, you're going to have your business trust be the owner of your LLC. So now when we look you up on the Secretary of State and we put in your business name, now we see another entity, 123, 123 Main Street Trust. We see that entity, and we don't see your personal name. So if we want to sue the LLC, we sometimes we won't even know how to even get in contact with this type of entity, because a business trust is private. So you're not able to even look them up to know, who the trustee is, or what their address is, or their phone number, or how to get in contact with them, how to serve them, with a lawsuit or anything like that. So that's your first layer of protection, okay? And when it comes to business and taxes, your LLC is the one that is actually, out here in the business, in commerce, making money. And so that money is going to flow into your business trust, right? Because you have the business trust as being 100% owner of the LLC. So now all that money is going to flow from your LLC into your business trust. And so now the LLC, since it did a K-1 distribution to its owner, it is going to be taxed $0 because it distributed 100%. And so now all those funds are in the business trust, and then you can do your expenses. So whatever expenses the business trust has, let's just say that the business trust, the LLC brought in 100,000, and that 100,000 now flows into the business trust. So at that point in time, when it's at the business trust, you're going to do your expenses, right? So whatever write-offs you have for the business trust, you're going to do that. And let's just say that now you expend it down to 70,000, right? So now that 70,000, you can either keep it in the trust and then that will not trigger a taxable event, or you can actually distribute it to the beneficiary. So the beneficiary of the business trust is going to be the private family trust. And so at that point in time, that 70,000 is now going to flow into the private family trust. And at that point, you are going to do your expenses for the benefit of your beneficiaries. So that's where you're going to be paying your mortgage, your insurance, your groceries, whatever it is that you need for your livelihood. And so you're going to do all of those expenses. So now let's just say that you expend that 70,000, down to 10,000. So at that point in time, the private family trust is going to qualify to be taxed at 38% on that $10,000. And so what you can do is, instead of paying 38% or $3,800 for that $10,000, you can now donate that $10,000 to your tax exempt trust. Other names for the tax exempt trust are church trust, ministry trust, faith-based organization, convention. There's a lot of different names that are interchangeable, but it's pretty much equivalent to a 501c3, but it is exempt from filing for a 501c3 because it is a trust that is designated as a 508c1a. So with that type of tax exempt trust, you don't have to file federal taxes, state taxes, sales taxes, and you don't have to provide any of your financials either. If you do QuickBooks, if you have an accountant or anything like that, you don't have to provide any of that stuff. So instead of you paying taxes on that $10,000, you're going to donate it to your tax exempt trust. And then your tax liability is going to be completely zeroed out, and you can't be taxed on zero, right? So once that money goes into your tax exempt trust, that's where you're going to do all your charitable, philanthropic stuff, right? So whatever it is that you're doing for the community, you're giving back, whatever it is, you could also do investments too. So if you decided that you wanted to invest in stocks, crypto, real estate, you can do that as well. So you can pretty much do, whatever it is that you want with those funds. But you can certainly do investments as well as, give to your charitable organizations. Okay. So that is, that's super important. And this is definitely a structure that you want to implement, in your world, especially if you're doing business and especially if you are growing wealth. So the next part of the wealth building formula is credit, right? So with these types of trusts, you can build credit, right? You can build credit with a business trust, with a family trust, with a nonprofit trust. But you also want to keep in mind that you want to be private. So building credit is actually pulling this trust into the public sector for you to be able to be searched, and for, your address and your phone number and your identity to be, available. So a lot of clients, they decide to just only build credit with their LLCs or with their business trust, but they don't want to, and I don't advise it either, for you to build credit with your private family trust, because that's your asset holding trust. That's the trust where you're going to have your house and your insurance policy and your precious metals. So you don't want to tie that into commerce and tie that into, you building credit. You have to choose one trust where you're going to designate that as a trust where you're going to build credit, and that you are comfortable and okay with that that entity being, in the public records, because you don't have any assets in that entity. Okay. So you're going to build corporate credit, and with a business trust, you get higher lines of credit, right? So you'll start with like the tier 1, your net 30 accounts, and then you'll move up to tier 2 and 3, and you'll get your store cards, and then you'll get your Visas and your MasterCards, and then you'll get lines of credit, right? So once you build up your credit, you can also qualify for nonprofit grants, right? So for example, Google, they give grants as far as like Google ads of up to $10,000 for nonprofits. So you are able to qualify for these types of grants with your tax exempt, ministry, trust, faith-based, organization. So also keep that in mind, because that is a benefit for you, right? And then after you have, built the credit, and after you have acquired grants, then you are able to invest in the wealth building formula. And so, you can invest in anything. You can invest in crypto, you can invest in stocks, you can invest in whatever it is that you want. But right now, like during these times, there's two major investments that I recommend, right? And one of them is an index universal life insurance policy, because you have to put yourself in the position to where you are paying yourself first. That is vitally important. And a lot of people fail to do that. They don't understand the concept of paying themselves first, because we're so used to working a W-2 job to where we pay taxes first, and then we get whatever's left over after paying taxes, right? But with a trust, right, you are actually getting the money first, and then whatever is left over, then you pay taxes on that. So when it comes to an index universal life insurance policy, you're going to pay yourself first, because whatever is coming in, let's just say that you made, $10,000 today or $10,000 this month, right? Every single thing that's coming in, instead of you paying your bills first, so instead of you paying your mortgage, your grocery, your utilities, you are going to park that money into your insurance policy. And at that point in time, your policy is building cash value, which is very important, because you can borrow against that cash value. So you're going to be funneling everything. When I'm saying everything, right? Everything that's coming in, you're going to funnel it or park it into your insurance policy, and then you're going to borrow it out. So for example, if I made $10,000 today, I'm going to make a payment for my insurance policy, and then I'm going to call them up and I'm going to say, hey, I need a loan for $10,000. So I made the payment, my cash value went up by $10,000. And at that point in time, the insurance company is going to look at my asset, because your insurance policy is an asset. They consider it an asset, and that's what it's known here, in the financial industry. And so because it's an asset, they'll look at your cash value. They'll see that you have, $10,000 in cash value or more. And so they will issue you a loan. The loan comes out of, or it doesn't come out of, but it is issued from the insurance company's money. So they do not take the $10,000 out of your policy. That $10,000 stays in your policy, and the insurance company is going to issue you a loan for $10,000 from their money, right? So now with an index universal life insurance policy, it's actually tied to the index, right? So you can choose whichever index you want. There's the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500. So I prefer the S&P 500 because of diversity. So with this type of policy, it mirrors the stock market. So your money is not invested in the stock market, but they look at the stock market's performance. And if the stock market is doing good, which typically it does like 8 to 10%. So if the stock market is doing good, then you get you actually get you get that interest in your cash value, right? So that means that $10,000 is going to be growing at 10% annually, and is going to be compounding every single year. And compound interest is, that's the snowball effect, right? That's where you're going to be put in a position to where you're actually growing your wealth fast, because you're making your money is making money for you. Okay. So now back to the loan, right? So the loan, they are going to issue you the loan. They are going to deposit it in direct deposit into your bank account, the $10,000. And they are going to charge you a interest rate, right? So it's pretty low. It's about 3%. So if that 10,000 is in your policy and it's making 10%, but then you took out a loan because that 10,000 you needed in order to pay for groceries and mortgage, then then you have to basically sum up the difference, right? So your 10,000 is in your policy making 10%, but you took out a loan for 3%, so you're going to average 7% of your interest. Okay. So now once they issue you the loan, you have that 10,000 back in your pocket, and you're able to pay your bills, or you're able to park those funds somewhere else into another investment, right? If you wanted to now take that 10,000, you can put that down on a property and and grow that same 10,000 twice. So now you're double dipping and you're making more money, right? Because you initially put the 10,000 into the policy, is making 10%, and now you took it back out and you put it into real estate, and now it's making rental income with that 10,000 being used as a down payment, right? So this is the type of investments that you want to do, right? You want to definitely have or incorporate an insurance policy in your wealth building formula. So now when it comes to the trust is actually going to be the owner of your insurance policy as well as the beneficiary. And that is beneficial to you because you have to understand that in this trust entity, you are a human asset. So you have physical assets like, cars and real estate, but then you have human assets, which are the beneficiaries, which are the trustees. So the trust is going to issue an insurance policy on every single human asset that is attached to that trust. So your spouse, your children, everyone is going to have a policy, and the trust is the one who is taking out the policy on you, and you are the insured and they are the beneficiaries. So now when you expire, that death benefit goes into the trust bank account, and then it's just growing and growing and growing, right? So that is the type of structure that you have, but that is where you're going to put yourself in a position to where you're preserving your wealth. Because a lot of us, we know how to make the money, but we don't know how to grow the money, and we don't know how to preserve the money because we are so focused on generational wealth. But how is the money going to stretch to, 7 or 8 generations down the line, right? So this is how that's able to happen, by you issuing insurance policies. And then once those human assets expire, then the trust bank account is replenished with the death benefits. Okay. If you have a policy already, all you have to do is call up your insurance company and tell them that you want to switch the owner. So you want to change the owner and the beneficiary of your policy. And then you're able to, they'll provide you with the documents. You're able to fill it out and put your trust as the new owner and the new beneficiary of your policy. There is a 3-year rule, meaning that if you die within 3 years of changing the ownership to the trust, then the IRS is going to charge or take an estate tax from your death benefit, because the IRS is going to get theirs. Okay. Because the IRS, you have to look at it this way, that you are an asset for the United States. I told you that they took out an insurance policy on you, and they have a trust on you. So when you die, they are going to tax your estate as well. Okay. So just keep that in mind. So we're talking about how to transfer wealth, right? So own nothing but control everything. That is your model. That is your that's what you need to go by, right? A lot of us, we are so proud to be homeowners. We are so proud to be business owners. But at the end of the day, it's not about, my name is on this house. It's about stewardship, which is meaning that you control your assets, right? You control the house. You get to dispose of it of any kind of way you want, right? You get to rent it, sell it, buy it, do whatever you want with it, right? So that's what you want to do. That's what you want to put yourself in that type of position, to where you don't own the house, but you control the house, right? This is what the wealthy do, and this is now what you're going to be doing, right? You need to be implementing these types of strategies because you want to be in a position to where you're growing wealth and you're able to transfer the wealth easily. So with every single trust, you have what we call TCUs or UBIs. So TCU stands for Trust Certificate Unit. UBIs are units of beneficial interest. These are the same as a stock certificate. Okay, so this is how you basically know what your beneficiaries have. So for example, the trust certificate units, you're going to issue them to your beneficiaries, and it's out of 100. So let's just say 100% ownership. So you have 100 TCUs, and let's just say you have 2 beneficiaries and you want them to have 50-50. That means that you are going to issue 50 TCUs to each beneficiary. Now they have equal beneficial interests in the trust. So let's just say that there's 10 properties in the trust, right? Well, technically, let's just say that there is, technically, if there's 10 properties in the trust, that means that 5 properties pretty much belongs to each beneficiary, right? Or if you are renting out these properties and you have rental income and there's distribution, then when it comes to that distribution, let's just say it's $10,000, then $5,000 is going to go to the beneficiary with 50 TCUs, and the other 5,000 is going to go to the other beneficiary with 50 TCUs. So that is how you are transferring wealth. Now, the trust doesn't live on forever. Like I tell you, there is a duration, there is an expiration date, right? So typically with a business trust, it'll run for 25 years. And with a private family trust, we will put it for 100 years. Okay, so you would have to, if you want this trust to continue on, then the trust would need to be renewed at least 30 to 60 days before the expiration date. Once the trust expires, it's dissolved. It is expired. There's nothing that you can do but create a new trust. Okay, so you want to be mindful of that. And if you want to continue on this legacy, then you want to renew your trust, when you're supposed to. So let's just talk about if the trust was dissolved, right? If the trust was dissolved, then at that point in time, all the assets that are in the trust, they are going to be deeded over to the beneficiaries, and it's just going to be based off of their ownership percentage or their units of beneficial interest. So like I said, if you have two beneficiaries and it's like 75-25, then 75 houses are going to go to the one with 75%, and 25 houses are going to go to the beneficiary with 25 TCUs. So that's how it works. And we spoke about preservation. So that's when you are issuing an insurance policy on your human assets so that you can preserve that wealth, meaning that when you lose somebody, the trust is replenished with money, basically, right? So here are some books that I recommend if you want to learn more about trust, if you want to learn more about utilizing insurance in order to grow your wealth, if you want to learn what the wealthy do. These are a couple books. So What Would the Rockefellers Do? That's one that I highly recommend. The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. Family Wealth is definitely definitely a good book to have. And the complete book of trust, which pretty much tells you how many trusts there are and the different types of trust, which, like I said, is there's hundreds of trusts. So take action, right? I provided a lot of information tonight. I know that it was a mouthful, and I am going to be answering questions. So this trust that you are creating, it is going to be your new form of doing business and making profits, right? So it can solve a lot of your problems and provide exceptional asset protection and tax savings for you and your family as long as you decide to operate it. Because in this industry, I've seen that people, they will get a trust and they will not, they choose to not transfer assets into the trust, right? So now they have an expensive piece of paper and they're not doing anything with it, right? Or they just, choose not to operate the trust. So you need to, you need to be mindful of that, and you need to pretty much treat your business trust and your family trust as if you would treat it like a Google, like an Amazon, like a Facebook, like a big business, right? Treat it like that, and it will grow into that as long as you are using these type of strategies in order to, one, protect your wealth so that nobody takes it from you, because like I said, this is a soup friendly country. And then two, you're using it to preserve your wealth as well and grow your wealth. Okay. So if you want to work together, I have two options where we can work together. I have a do-it-yourself option where I have now 33 video modules, and it's pretty much training on how to set up your trust. You get the templates for the trust. So you just pretty much plug in like the names and things of that nature. So like the name of the trust, the name of the trustees, the grantors, the beneficiaries, what do you want the expiration date to be, things of that nature. You get a bunch of resources as far as like the tax forms that you need. You get a bunch of ebooks. You get, because with a trust, you have to do board meetings, right? Because it is an entity. So you get the templates for the meetings. There's just so many resources that you get. And then there's also a community component too. We do have a Facebook group where you get to connect with like-minded individuals who are trustees, and you guys are pretty much doing it together. So that option to do it yourself, if you're an independent person, is $997. And you can go to wealthytrustee.com in order to enroll in the course. And if you feel like you need accountability, if you feel like you don't want to do it yourself, if you feel like you want you want assistance to make sure that you're doing everything correctly, then we can work together one-on-one, you and I. It's a series of 5 Zoom calls, unlimited question and answer. You do get lifetime access to the course, and we set up your trust the right way. We'll apply for your EINs. We will transfer your assets together. We'll, I'll teach you how to operate your trust and things of that nature. So that is $14.97. And if you are interested in that, then you can text back the community line where you receive the link for this webinar. And here is our contact information. So if you have any questions, you can call us. Our number is here. The website is wealthytrustee.com. Our email is info@7waystowealth.com. And then you can also follow us on social media. There's my personal and the business social media page. So now I'm going to take any questions that you guys might have. And I'm also going to show you what the trust looks like. So give me 1 second. Okay, so this is an example of the unincorporated business trust. So like I said, there's a lot of areas where it's in red, and pretty much you just plug in and put, what you need to put for that section. So this is name of trust. So you're going to put the name of your trust. You'll put the name of your trust down here under the footers. Here under your declaration and indenture. And then this is the table of contents, and then we pretty much go through it. So you'll put like the date of establishment, who the grantor is. You'll put the name of the trust and the state where you are, going to notarize the trust. And let's see, let's scroll down. So there's a bunch of, red areas. So this is just one of the 3 trusts that come with the program. So the program comes with the unincorporated business trust. It comes with the private family trust, and then it comes with the tax exempt nonprofit, ministry, faith-based organization trust. Okay. So I'm just going to scroll down briefly, not going to go through any of this information. I just wanted you guys to see, what this type of contract looks like, what this type of agreement looks like, the type of verbiage that it has. So like, for example, here it talks about trustee resignation and appointments, right? So if the trustee wanted to resign, then they would have to give a 30-day notice, right? So all of these things are already in the bylaws and the declaration of the trust, okay? And then towards the end, I'll just scroll down to the bottom. This is where you're going to get it notarized, okay? So the grantor is going to sign, the trustee is going to sign, and then the notary is going to sign and put their seal on there. And then here's where we issue the trust certificate units. So you have to give something of value in exchange for the trust certificate units. So for this example, you're going to give a $1 bill in exchange for the trust issuing you 100 certificate units, okay? Now this is the program. So this is the Wealthy Trustee program. So it comes with, either to do it yourself or done with you. And so you have like your trust entity. So I teach you all about the trust. What is a trust? Who are the parties involved? What are the benefits of having the trust? You setting up your unincorporated business trust, you setting up the 508c1a tax exempt trust. So we go through the declarations, the articles of incorporation, the bylaws, how to apply for your EINs. With the private family trust as well, we go through tax strategies because, one of the benefits is saving on taxes and almost paying no taxes. So you need to know what the tax strategies are. And so what are your tax strategies versus, the different types of trust and how to flow your money through each entity. We talk about asset protection, right? So you're going to do an inventory of your assets, see what you have and what you don't have and what you're going to put into your trust. How to create your bank account, brokerage accounts, how to transfer your car titles, your insurance, your property, things of that nature. We talk about wealth creation, right? So like what type of things can you invest in order to grow the trust funds, right? Because you've heard of the term trust fund babies. So we already know that these beneficiaries are receiving distributions. So you got to be growing the money, right? Or then the trust funds are just going to be depleted. So we talk about, building credit and then utilizing that credit in order to purchase real estate or in order to invest in the stock market, with that type of trust. And then we teach you pretty much how to run your family like a business, right? So your family is going to have a mission statement. You guys are going to have rituals. Let's just say that, every single year you guys take a trip to Dubai, just to do your annual board meeting in order to figure out what your financial projections are for the next year, right? And it's at the full expense of the trust, right? So the family bank is pretty much the insurance component of it, right? You're going to use your insurance policy as your family bank. You're going to be flowing all of the money that's coming into the trust. You're going to flow it into the policy, pay yourself first, and then take it right back out and do what you need to do with the money, okay? And then we talk about the philanthropic things that we need with the ministry, tax exempt trust. And then here you have all of your resources and your ebooks, like I said, okay? So that's the program. So now I'm going to be taking any questions that you guys might have. Thank you for joining me tonight. And yeah, it's been an hour. All right. Any questions?
Yes, Ms. Yvette.
Hey, Tarek.
How you doing?
Good, good, good. How are you?
Okay. So with the insurance policies,
Yeah,
everyone we were gonna take a policy out on everyone in the family, right?
correct.
And does it matter on the amount, or they're just totally up on us?
It's up to you. It's up to you what amount you want, or pretty much how much money do you want to flow into and out of the policy. So you figure that out. So let's just say that you determine, I want to flow in and out of the insurance policy $100,000 a month, then that's what you'll take the policy out for. And then you'll do that. You'll flow it in and out, in and out. And you can do it like, several times. So for example, if I flow in $10,000 today, and then, tomorrow it clears with the insurance policy, and I call them up and I take out that loan for 10,000, they deposit it into my bank, within 24 hours, right? That 10,000 that you just took a loan out, you can flow it right back in there. So now your cash value is at 20,000. So you have to, it's super beneficial. Like you can fund your policy in days, right? Like for the whole year, you can fund it in I wouldn't say days, weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of us, we think that insurance is for when we die, right? We think that, oh, I'm just going to get out this policy, and then when I die, my kids are going to have, $500,000. But insurance is actually supposed to be utilized when you are living, right? And it's supposed to be utilized for this purpose, because I'm not sure if you know, but your insurance policy is tax exempt. Like all of these loans, the money that you're putting in and the money that you're taking out is tax exempt. So so you definitely want to utilize these tools that the government is allowing you to pretty much have tax free.
Okay. And then does it matter what type of policy it
It
is?
does. Not every policy. Thank you for asking that question. That is a really, really, really good question. Okay. So every policy is not the same. Okay. When it comes to your insurance policy, it has to be a policy where you're building cash value. For example, a term life policy does not build cash value. So you cannot do this type of strategy with that type of entity. Okay. So typically it is a whole life policy and an IUL policy. With a whole life policy, you get a guaranteed rate, and usually it's about like 4% annually, right? That's going to be your interest rate that you gain on your cash value. But two, you accumulate less cash value over time. And another thing is that when you die, it's either or. So it's either you get the cash value or the death benefit, but you don't get both. Okay. Now, with an IUL policy, like I said, it mirrors the market. It mirrors whatever index you want. So you're making more. So with an IUL, you're going to get anywhere between 0 to 10% a year. Okay. So on the down market, let's just say that the market is doing -2%, you're going to make 0. But let's just say that the market is doing 15%, you're capped at 10. Okay. So that's one thing. Another thing is that you're building cash value faster because you're making 10% interest and it's compounding. Okay. So you're building more cash value. And then another thing is that with this type of policy, when you expire, you get both, right? You get the cash value and the death benefit. So you get the sum of both, right? So that's actually an extreme reason or benefit. That's a good reason why you should go with IUL versus whole life, because whole life you got to choose. It's either or, it's not both. And IUL, it's both. So that's good because that's more money for your beneficiaries. Okay. And another thing is that An IUL policy or whole life policy, that's just the policy. It depends on how the insurance agent structures it. So you can go get a policy tomorrow, but if they didn't structure it the right way to where you are building cash value quickly, then this strategy is not going to work for you. Okay, because you have to understand that life insurance agents, they are in it to make money, right? That's their bread and butter. That's how they feed their kids, is through the commission that they're receiving from your policy. So 99%, I'm gonna say 99% because you have the 1%, right? So I'm gonna say 90, let's just say 95% of insurance agents, they are in it for the commission. So like I said, they're going to structure your policy to where, one, they are going to lock you in to where you cannot access your cash value for like 12 to 18 to sometimes 24 months. That's what I've seen. Okay, so that is up to their discretion, and why they choose to do that, I don't know. It probably has something to do with their commission. Another thing is that they have high commission, right? So usually their commission is like 60% or something like that. So everything that you're paying into your policy, you know, from whatever fee, whatever insurance fees that they are, they're getting 60%, and I guess the insurance company is getting the other 40. So you have to go with a company and with an agent that is actually going to reduce their commission so that you are able to build cash value faster and you're able to tap into it sooner. So for me, my insurance agent, he reduced his down to significantly not that much, right? And I was able to tap into my cash value 3 months from starting the policy, versus some people that I've seen that they have had whole life policies for 3, 4, 5 years and haven't built cash value because their money is going to commission, or it was locked in and they couldn't access it for 18 months, right? So they couldn't really use this strategy until the 18th month. So you have to just choose the right agent and the right company, because a lot of companies, they offer it, but it's how it's structured, right? Because everyone's not the same. Like, I'm not the same from you. We're not the same age, height, weight, you know, medical, all kind of stuff. So it's how they structure your policy to where this is going to really benefit for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome. Any other questions? Thank you for that good question. Hey, Aunt. Hey, iPhone. Any other questions? Well, I hope I brought you guys a lot of value tonight. Tonight was wonderful. I enjoy you know, talking about this. I did put the website up. So it is the Wealthy Trustee, www.wealthytrustee.com. And you can also, like I said, text the community line if you have any questions, if you think of anything, you know, between today and forever. You can text the community line, send us an email, whatever it is that you need. Aunt said, I will be doing this soon with you. Okay, awesome. Congratulations. Love to hear it, Aunt. So anyways, if you have any questions, text the community line. You can also go to the website. There's a bunch of frequently asked questions. There's some video testimonials on there. And that's pretty much it. Definitely signing up. Okay, love to hear it, Dim. So yeah, so that's it. So thank you so much for, he said, where is the link? So the link is www.wealthytrustee.com. I'm putting it back in the chat. You might not have it. So yeah, so anyway, so that's it. Thank you so much. Tonight was amazing, and I will see you guys in the next video.